On Tuesday, March 3rd, ADOS Advocacy Foundation members from across the state of North Carolina traveled to Mecklenburg County to work polls across District 106 and support incumbent North Carolina State Representative Carla Cunningham. I personally had the opportunity to spend the entire day with Rep. Cunningham as she traveled from poll to poll, talking to voters, thanking volunteers, and bringing her case right to the people of Mecklenburg County. After years of service as a Democrat, State Representative Carla Cunningham has officially changed her party affiliation from Democrat to unaffiliated. Following a primary loss and a long history of challenging party leadership from within. But this is not just about a party switch. This is about power. Who has it, who doesn't, and what happens when you refuse to play by the rules. From claims of blocked funding for Black candidates to questions about party control to her willingness to work across the aisle, even when it cost her politically, Representative Cunningham is stepping forward with her side of the story. Today, we're going beyond headlines and into the reality of what it means to serve, to stand alone, and to ask a simple question. Are elected officials serving the people or the party? Stick around. This is a conversation that matters. Welcome to the Critical Mass Podcast. I am your host, Simeon, and today's show is sponsored by the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, a 501c4 organization committed to reparations and a transformative Black agenda. You can find out more at adosfoundation.org. Today, I'm also joined by the president of the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, Yvette Carnell. So let's welcome Yvette Carnell.
Thank you, Simeon. I appreciate that.
Hey, Yvette. I hope you're having a good day so far.
Oh, wonderful.
The world has been all over the place, so I'm so happy to get to talk to you today. One of the things that being a student and getting to be in community with you, I've heard you over the years talk about us as a community being self-interested, us accessing the power that we have and how we vote and who we vote for and how we advocate. So just to start, in relation to Representative Cunningham going unaffiliated, what did you think when you first heard that news?
Well, given the fact that the Democratic Party, where she is in North Carolina, abandoned her, and not only abandoned her, but weaponized itself against her, I don't think she had any choice. Because your main goal as a politician, you're a public servant. So you have to serve the people who voted for you. You have to serve the public and not the party. And I saw that as an intention to do that, as opposed to just kind of bootlicking the party. So, it doesn't matter to me. You do whatever you have to do to serve the people. And I think she did that.
I 100% agree. If you have not checked out the first episode of this season, we did an in-depth interview with Representative Cunningham before the primary election, and we are so happy to have her back today. So please give a warm critical mass round of applause to Representative Carla Cunningham.
Thank you. Thank you, Yvette. Thank you, Simeon, for having me.
Of course.
Thank you for being here. Today, I want to talk about a vast aspect of things. We're kind of going to start from now and then go back a little bit. And so I know a question on a lot of people's minds, and I've seen a lot of media about the fact that you went unaffiliated, but I haven't seen your statements or heard much around your statements on why. So I wanted to ask you directly. You spent years as a Democrat. You spent years helping Democrats get elected. You spent years organizing in your community as a Democrat, helping locally and nationally. So what was the breaking point that made you go unaffiliated?
So the breaking point for me, it started several years ago. I started to shift when Medicaid expansion came about. I was shifting because we were told in our caucus not to vote for it, and I had went to the legislature to get Medicaid expansion done. And the governor came over and asked us not to vote for it because it was inside of a Republican budget. It was triggered by that budget. And I told him I would not do it. So I voted for the budget. And that made me start to shift because I figured that something that I have fought for longer than the 14 years I've served, way before I got there, is that I would not stand up and not vote for the budget based on what somebody told me. Right now in North Carolina, we have 700,000 people because of Medicaid expansion that now have healthcare coverage. And then that person went around the country behaving like they did Medicaid expansion. Really, it was the Republican Senate and the House and the people that were serving at that time that got Medicaid expansion done. So, and then of course, COVID had happened, and I worked across the aisle to get those resources back into the community. And when we sat down and made the decision on how that committee would function, we made a commitment that we wouldn't do anything partisan as far as resources getting back into the community to save lives. And it was two Democrats and 4 Republicans. And so that kind of gave me another view of what's actually taking place. As far as the party goes, I had, like you said, supported the party for years, helped Barack Obama get elected, ran ground game, ran precinct, did numerous positions under the party. But I came to realize 2 things about the party. When I ran for office, they never financially supported me. I always had to raise my own money. The next thing was that in the rooms, they complain constantly, but I don't see them trying to work across the aisle to accomplish things for their community. It's just, I call them the no group. Is everything is no. So I say, y'all the no group. And so I think with my nursing background, I've always knew how to work as a team, but also knew how to negotiate and navigate difficult spaces. And when you're not in charge and the majority is in charge, then you shouldn't just pout. You should figure out a way to work and reach your goal, no matter who is there. But you still have a seat at the table, and you shouldn't just be holding a seat as a legislator. If you're not bringing resources back home to your community, you really are doing an injustice to the constituents.
Mm. So do you feel like you were essentially being asked to choose between your values or the party?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I was. And I had been asked that numerous times, and I had gone along numerous times. But it seems like the straw broke the camel's back. And when it came to the Medicaid expansion, I was done. I'm like, you don't get to come over here and tell me not to vote for something just because it's inside of the budget. That triggered it. Few people even knew that it was triggered, that if you had not signed that budget in place, nobody would have got Medicaid expansion in North Carolina. So my eyes would open up to the party and the leadership telling us, you got to do this, you have to do this, or we're gonna ostracize you, we're gonna bully you, we're gonna do everything we can to hurt you. And it became a reality. I had seen it happen to another legislator, but I wasn't in the thick of it. And what she described, and she was a Democrat, and she left and became a Republican. But some of the same things that happened to her happened to me. It was just that it was a couple of years later that, I kind of woke up and decided I'm not playing the game anymore. I've had enough.
Yvette, what are your thoughts around that when I believe our community needs independent thought? I believe that our community needs people who are willing to stand in the gap and make some of those hard decisions and really work with anybody to get the resources. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I don't think there are elements of the Democratic Party that don't want to hear our independent thought, right? About how, hey, we're going to work with whoever we have to work with, Republican, Democrat, whatever, if we get the needs of our people met. We have constituents with public service. We have to meet those needs. And I think their goal is political. Hey, this won't look good for me if it comes out of Republicans, right? It won't look good for me if it comes out of Republican budget. But we have a responsibility to serve our people. And what happens is we're supposed to be the mules of the Democratic Party as opposed to the public servant of our own people. And that's the clash. And that's a problematic clash, because when you run for something, I don't care whether you run locally or whether you run for Congress, you are supposed to serve those people. And they get in the way of that. And they say, hey, you got to do what I say do, even if it hurts your people, even if this is something you work for a long time, like Rep. Cunningham said. I don't care about that. It's not going to be good for me politically. So you're kind of faced with, do I serve this governor or do I serve my people? And I think Rep. Cunningham made the right decision in terms of, I'm going to serve my people. And I think that's the thing that like put a target on her. And serving your people should never be something that puts a target on your back.
Go ahead, Rep. Cunningham.
You're exactly right. And then they also, what I found since I've been elected, I found how they even disperse the resources. And I think I said it to Simeon. First, they're going to give to the majority party in charge. Then I'm talking about PAC money, political action committees. Then they're going to give to the white male, the black male, the white woman, and the black woman is last. And they look at the amount of money, who gets the most money. So, and it's also a succession plan already in place. They looked at me as a threat. I'm not in their succession plan. See what I'm saying? If they already got it lined up for the next 4 years, the people that you don't see that's running in the back room, that's running the party, the leaders that you don't see, they already got a succession plan in place. We don't have a succession plan, and I'm not in their plan. And everybody in their plan don't look like me.
You know, you made a statement during our pre-meeting, and I wrote this quote down. You said there's a succession plan for white Democrats, but not for black Democrats. Do you believe in moving into just the power and the representation? Because I think that speaks directly to representation and power. Do you believe that black elected officials are being used politically without a real return to their communities?
Absolutely. They are. I've seen it. I've looked at my caucus when I was going to the caucus. And at one point, we had more blacks in the caucus. It was almost even. Now we have far fewer. But if I wanted to mentor them, they had a tendency to listen to the progressive white women, the extreme left. It's a few of them listen, but most of them fall under the leadership of those people. Well, they have more money that they bring into the caucus. We got a couple of them that raise extra money to bring into the caucus. Well, when they do that, they're building their power so that they can tell other folk what to do. So they can lead them instead of the person coming in with their own philosophy, own ideology, and a well-grounded foundation. Some of them come with nothing, but then they don't want to learn from the senior black women legislator that can really help them navigate the space. One other thing that I realized as I was shifting is that some of the other women, extreme left women, they were already navigating and negotiating. But when I figured out how to do it, it became a problem because now they can't get the things I can get because they're not dealing with them. See what I'm saying? So it's a level of jealousy and envy and you in my space, and you need to get out of it.
It really sounds like everyone's allowed to negotiate but us. We're kind of just expected to walk that line and just follow. I mean, we're living in a world where Ro Khanna and Marjorie Taylor Greene are talking. Yvette, what does that look like? Where you have a whole space now where bipartisanship is being pushed in the name of saving the country, but yet and still we had voter tools taken away from you, organizing tools taken away from you pre-election via the Democratic Party. What does that say to voters, President Carnea?
Well, I think it says that we're supposed to be a tool of the Democratic Party, right? Like our goal is supposed to be do whatever we tell you to do to aid the party. That's not necessarily what aids my people, though, right? That's not necessarily what aids my constituents. So I should be able, the constituents elected me, right? So I should be able to aid those people. But what they're telling us is that, like, no, you are a mule for the party. Like, you do what we tell you to do for the party. So it takes away independent agency. I remember when Joe Manchin was in this was in the Senate. I don't know if everybody remembers it. And they treated that man like a king because they said, oh, he has to be independent. His district, he has to negotiate with Republicans. He stood in opposition to Democrats more than he stood with them. We see Fetterman now, right? He won't even go on the floor, won't even wear a tie, won't even wear a suit jacket. And he's like, most of the time, I don't agree with Democrats. And some people have a problem, but not everybody, right? He's considered an independent agent. The thing that happens with us is that we cannot be independent in politics. We're expected to be just the mule for the Democratic Party. And so we pull the party along, even if it's at the expense of our own people and our own constituents in our community, no matter who those constituents are. And that is a problem. And that's why we have a hard time making progress, because a lot of people signed up for that deal. And what I give Representative Cunningham credit for is that she didn't sign up for that deal. I don't sign up for like putting my constituents to the back and the party at the front. I sign up for like, I'm going to prioritize my constituents. The problem is the constituents don't all the time know what you're doing and they buy into the propaganda. So it's a conundrum to be in, but the problem is we're not allowed to be independent and really negotiate what we want and how we want it. We're expected to just go along and get along. And I saw that even when like Representative Cunningham was heckled. It was just like, you're not allowed to say this. You're not allowed to have these thoughts. You're not allowed to have these beliefs. That's problematic because we're people. We're actual human beings with brains. We're allowed to have whatever beliefs we have and whatever thoughts we have. And that's just kind of the position that the Democratic Party has put us in. And so they shouldn't be surprised with the pushback that they're getting right now.
Absolutely. You mentioned the community, and one of the things I noticed while we were outside of polls is how a lot of our community, even though we have communities with dirty water, we have the highest unemployment across Black male and Black females, we have underemployment, we have overt racism, we have Black maternal death skyrocketing. I found a lot of our community seemed tied up in the fight for immigration. What was it like for you as a nurse when you know you're seeing all of these disparities in our community, and you are in a majority Black district, or largely Black district? What was it like seeing our community focused on so many things outside of the immediate needs of the community?
So it was difficult to see, because when I looked at the community, I understood that the opioid overdoses had gone up 600% in Mecklenburg County amongst the young Black boys. I was very much aware of the maternal and infant mortality rates because I serve on the Child Fatality Task Force. So I see a lot of things the public don't see when we're looking at the data and the stats, and they don't see it. The other thing that is sort of complex about it is the priorities are set and driven by propaganda from the party. So that's the immigration They talked about immigration, but the pushback from the governor really wasn't about immigration. It was about power. It was telling us, if you don't do what we tell you to do, then we're going to get rid of you. The other angle of it is they have a succession plan. They trying to figure out where you going to go and what you going to do. They don't really care, but they just want to make sure you don't try to get one of those positions in the succession plan for them. And really, their campaign was bought. The person that was selected and endorsed by the governor, it was bought. So the people didn't have a chance because I didn't have my tools of the vote builder. The constituents were really cut off. My regular voters probably didn't come to the polls. The other issue is when voting and politics gets negative, a lot of people don't want to come. And so that was another way of suppressing the vote. And they did all of that, because when they put the Trump hat on my head in the mailers, they sent out about 14 mailers, and they painted me as a MAGA person. And they did that. But, you know, it was a lie, but I didn't have enough money, $1 million. I believe they put $1 million to take me out. Well, that they had it. They know how to get the money because they're all connected. They used the same strategy on me as they did 2 other Black elected officials. They took all 3 of us out at the same time using the same people. When they came in here, they brought people not even from North Carolina in here to knock doors and talk to constituents. So it was an outside group that came in. But it's sad because we should have our own agenda. We shouldn't rely on somebody else's agenda. And also, we should be able to set our own values. Our values shouldn't be set by other people. My identity is my identity. That shouldn't be something that somebody else get to do for us. I'm done in that aspect. I had somebody wanted me to say I was African American. And I told them no, because I'm not African American. I did my DNA. I know who I am. So it's that kind of thing. They want you to talk about people of color. I'm not a people of color. I am a Black American. And so our identity should be set by us, not by other people want to tell us who we are, what we can say, and how we can move. I think we've earned that right to do that because of the sacrifices of our ancestors. And it's time for us to stand up on that. I'm proud to be Black. I'm proud to be an American. This is my country. Is this not your country? A whole lot of folks acting right now like it's not their country until something personal happens to them or a tragedy happened to them and it's up close and personal, then they're going to change. But until then, they're going to keep on following the propaganda.
Well, I know them taxes I be having to pay. It sure tell me that I'm that this is the country
right now. Estimated tax check. I gotta say.
Oh, them taxes are hitting out the park right now. Yvette, I know you get a lot of flack for even having an American flag in your profile. Like you're supposed to pay taxes, and the same people that'll tell you that you're supposed to vote for XYZ will then try to disenfranchise you of America. What is that like from an advocacy perspective, where you're getting told to do these American things like vote for XYZ? You're getting told that everything should be about the greater good, but then it's like, hey, by the way, don't forget you're not American.
Well, the question is too, who's greater good? Right? Because we got to do what's good for the greater good. Who's greater good? What greater good are you talking about? Because like it or not, when MLK marched and he had the flag in the background, he was marching to be American. Now we can march and say we want to change this country. This country has fundamental flaws and fundamental problems. I agree, but that doesn't change what my passport says. It says American. That's who I am. It doesn't change where I was born. I was born in America. I've seen my birth certificate. It doesn't change where my grandmama, granddaddy, great-grandmama, great-granddaddy were born. So, I think people get very confused when they see the American flag. They think that we're patriotic in the kind of right-wing way. And no, we're trying to reclaim this flag for something that is not like right-wing, that is not racist, but is just us saying this is ours. Slaves built this country. So if there's anybody whose country this is ours, and we have an investment and we have a need to change this country in a way that serves us. But what happens most of the time is that people don't listen to that part. People don't want to hear that part. They just see the flag and listen to the propaganda. In the same way Rep. Cunningham talked about the MAGA hat they put on her. I put a MAGA hat on me, but not in support of Trump. I said, hey, when a politician does something good for you, you put a hat on. When they do something bad for you, you take the hat off. I used it as a prop. And instead of going and watching the video, people just kept taking screenshots because people are more invested in propaganda than they are in actually doing something good for the community and actually listening to what you have to say. And so that part of it to me is just so problematic. I think we have a problem even as a community where we won't even talk to each other. You'll listen to what a white person said about me rather than talking to me. My DM's open, my email is open. You listen to what a white man said about me. That's a problem if you take his word as gold, right? If you take his word as truth, but you never reach out to me. We have a community problem, not just an American problem, none of that, because you never asked me what that flag meant to me. You just looked at the timeline, listened to some white person, whether it be a white person on the right or a white leftist, and you say, oh, I know what this means, an event's a problem, or Rep. Cunningham's a problem, anybody's a problem. You never reached out to us. And if we can't talk to each other, I would say we're not a community at all.
I think she's right, Yvette. That is so very true. Is they would rather talk to someone else than to talk to you. The story is not everybody's story to tell. And we got a person here now that's leading the Democratic Party. And every time something happens, she got something to say. But she's never put my shoes on and walked through the General Assembly doors. Most people haven't. So they don't understand what you're going through or the dynamics or the situation or circumstances that you're having to work up under and produce, if you want to be successful at it. So we do need to be talking to each other more now than ever before, because we're losing the children. We're losing our young boys. We're losing our young girls now. What is the future going to be for them? And if we don't start talking to each other and start figuring out an agenda for us, because everybody else got an agenda. We don't have an agenda solidified that is beneficial to our community. And that's where I was standing when I stood on that floor, is that it's time for us to take care of us. We've been trying to take care of other people and our backs are getting broke down, but nothing is coming for us to assist us. And we need people that's going to stand for us and not bow down.
You mean people who could have already solidified the Voting Rights Act anytime that they had power and didn't? Are right. people who could have already, like I think of even like the Harris campaign or the Biden campaign from before, adopting Black agenda items. The ADOS Advocacy Foundation, at adosfoundation.org, you can find a full Black agenda there on National Black Agenda. We also have state Black agendas, so make sure you are checking that out. I think of Mecklenburg County, where Mecklenburg County, it's 30% Black. 30% of your voters are Black voters, and that hasn't translated into power. And you've brought up just recently the chair of the Democratic Party here in North Carolina. And from my perspective as a voter who's also an unaffiliated voter, along with the other 2.8 million unaffiliated voters in North Carolina, there are more unaffiliated voters in North Carolina than there are Democratic voters, and there's more unaffiliated voters in North Carolina than there are Republican voters. So I'd argue your move is that of you going with the people who are also unaffiliated and want things that maybe both sides offer that all Americans should have. What was your experience working with leadership in the Democratic Party? And specifically, what was your experience working with Governor Josh Stein?
So I'm probably a realist. When the new governor came in, I met with them a couple of times. And one of the things that I had a discussion with him about was that the resources coming into my district. I had gotten resources when I voted for the budget with the Medicaid expansion in it to come into my district, $23 million. And it came in through 501c3s on different issues, Habitat for Humanity, the Relatives, Organization Help Youth, Lifespan, Organization Help Disability, even the Metrolina Food Bank to feed people during difficult time, high groceries. And so I didn't think they understood me quite. I explained to them that, we weren't going to be taking any more bounce checks in my community. And that and I said it to his face, but he was looking at me talking about a team. And I said, well, I hadn't seen a team. Where was the team at? I didn't get no check, you know what I'm saying? But they got checks. And so when money came in, it was $47 million came in North Carolina during the last election. And it was 3 Blacks that was on the ballot as well. One was running for the appellate court. Another one was running for labor, and another one was running for the auditor. And they went in the back room and made a decision they wasn't going to finance them because they didn't think they could win. And so the money came in and they dibbled the money out, the consultants that they had, the leadership at the top had. And so when I said it to them, I said, I know about the $47 million that came in, and I didn't see it benefit none of us. And so I think they were quite shocked that I had taken a position that no matter what was going to happen, that I wasn't changing my mind on anything as far as what was coming up, because what I said is I'm going to do what's beneficial to my constituency. And I have prioritized that, and they come first. And so that was how I dealt with him. And pretty much they didn't particularly care for it. But they did make some calls before that veto override to some individuals that were in powerful positions. And they wanted them to persuade me not to support the veto override. Well, I had already made a decision of what I was going to do, because basically before I had got reelected, I had already voted for House Bill 10 and got reelected. They wanted to say that it was about the speech. No, it wasn't about the speech. It was about power, because I'm over there telling the governor what I'm not going to do. And he looking at me saying, okay, we're going to see. We're going to see. And so that's what happened. But, it's an interesting dynamic, because the people, they bought this election. They bought this election. The people are the ones that have lost out, because that $23 million coming into Mecklenburg County was certainly beneficial to the people all over Mecklenburg County. Now that won't happen. So, it's a level of engagement that people have to have. And my voters, like I said, probably didn't come out and vote because of the negativity, because of what they were sending in the mail into their homes. I get it. I'd have been frustrated too. But then I have been serving 13 years, 14 years. They should have known who I was by then. But a lot of times people don't engage because the complexities of life, keeping food on the table, keeping the lights on, keeping the children going to school, keeping gas in the car. It's economics right now. So the focus is on survival, but they still getting the noise that really is no value to them.
Mm-hmm. For you talked a little bit about the veto override. Obviously, you're not allowed to be independent. If you're with the Democratic Party, you have to agree with whatever they're saying. But I wanted to put this in context. When it comes to working across the aisle, out of over 300 and some odd bills, and it was in the high threes, you only voted Republicans, I think, 13 times.
So, I went back and looked at how many bills it was. It was 600 bills. And they based it off of how many, it was 600 and something votes you could take out of all the bills that was filed. And if you looked at the totality of my vote, it's like a percentage vote. Oh, God. I know who that is. Can I step away for 1 minute?
You sure can. I got so I go for it. Yvette,
Can we talk about the money for 1 second, Simeon?
Can we please?
Like you talking about all that, what you say, 47 million?
47 million
down, and they're saying we're not going to give it to the Black Democrats because we don't think they can win. Right. Not I'm going to make them win. Not we're going to put the money behind them to help them win. We don't think they can win. I think about when I worked at the DNC, they didn't give any money at that time, and it's a small amount now. And it used to be a big deal to Black consultants, right? Like we don't deal with them. So we're in a party that doesn't even pass that money down. They don't even invest in us as like, hey, we're gonna put a bunch of money behind you. We're gonna put a bunch of money in your community. We're gonna invest in these consultants or ADOS or whatever. Like they're not doing that, and we stand behind them as if they are investing in us in our community. Do you know how many? We're the base of the Democratic Party. Do you know how many ADOS consultancies there need to be? Who are consulting Democratic Party? Not only that, when I speak to you and me, and we speak to ADOS and ADOS AF and ADOS CP and all of that, y'all have tried to get us out of here more times than a few, right? Mm-hmm. The same way when Representative Cunningham says, hey, I voted with Democrats this many times. I've done this. I've been bipartisan this many times. And all of a sudden that's a problem. How is that a problem? And how are y'all still able to convince? And this is where political education comes in. How are y'all able to convince my constituents that I'm not a Democrat no more by just throwing a MAGA hat on my head? It's so many problems here.
Yeah, it's a disconnect. And just to think that they could come in, even the media, the local media was very biased too. They're very liberal. and I get that. Either they far right or they far left. It's no middle ground. But the propaganda is, somebody talk about Russian propaganda. America got just as much propaganda. And you want to talk about fake news. Where is the real news at? You got to decipher now, because they're going to feed you drama for their ratings. It's minimal truth to what they're reporting now.
100%. Now, you were saying, we were talking about the out of 300, and you corrected that, closer to 600 bills, where you only voted with Republicans 13 times.
It was 13.
Can you clarify that?
It was 13 votes, but see, that was 13 controversial votes. So if you was able to see the 600 votes, you can see that all of us voted with the Republicans over 50% of the time, even up to 70%. The leadership of the caucus voted close to 70%, the Democratic caucus. So most of the bills that come before us are not controversial, and everybody's voting the same way. So they just picked and choose which ones are controversial. And those, it was 13 that gave people heartburn. Yeah.
And yet it still created the narrative that you've just turned your back on the people and a Democratic Party. It's
that was the narrative.
And you know what's interesting? I know from an ADOS Advocacy Foundation perspective, and you specifically, Yvette, you get called a Democrat by some folks and a Republican by others. I actually look at that as a compliment, because that tells me that you're able to grab what our people need across the aisle and in different places. But what is that like? By one group, they're like, oh, you just love the Democrats. And another group is you're MAGA. I don't understand how the two operate together.
Well, it's very interesting, because what it says is that none of y'all know what you're talking about. Right. And like politics is a nuanced thing. So if I agree with the Democrats over here, it doesn't mean I'm a Democratic shield. It just means that I agree with them over here. If I agree with the Republicans over here in terms of, hey, let's tamp down immigration, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean I'm being paid by white people. I'm being paid by white supremacy. I'm being paid by anybody, because the New York Times researched that and couldn't find anything, because there's nothing there. It just means that on this issue, I agree with them. But I think that this country as a whole has a problem with free Negroes, right? they have an expectation that if they have this kind of nuanced thought and belief and they think for themselves, there has to be something wrong, because Negroes don't think for themselves. Adolf people don't think for themselves. So there must be something wrong. This person must be attached to this white supremacist organization, because there's no way that this woman is thinking for herself. She's got to be too stupid for that, because we don't see that. So I think part of this is just racism on the right and the left. Like Democrats and Republicans are very racist in terms of how they perceive us. So I think it's a perception problem. So for me, yes, I go around and I pick and choose what I think is best for my community. A lot of the things are Democratic things, the majority of them, right? A lot of the things, some of the things when we talk about immigration is the Republican thing. And so that's how I pick and choose. But I don't think that is the expectation for us to be able to pick and choose those things. The expectation is if they're not following one party, if they're not on board with Democrats, or they're not Black MAGA, something has to be wrong, because I'm a racist. Because I think these people are racist when they don't see us as having the capacity to kind of think for ourselves and work for ourselves and work to benefit our community. And that's what I see it. The problem is I don't even understand why people don't see the contradiction. Like, if you're calling me a Democratic shield and this person over here is calling me Black MAGA, one of y'all is wrong, or both of y'all is wrong. Figure it out amongst yourselves. But somebody's wrong in this conversation, and they don't even dig deep enough to kind of figure out which one of us is wrong, or is both of us wrong. She can't be both of these things at the same time. There's just not that level of thought. And I think the thought, that lacking, right, is a problem, because you should consider that I can't be these two things at the same time. And I think that is a huge problem. And I think the people who are my people are very problematic to me, because they don't reach out to me and ask me, who are you? You and I have talked to me about how many detractors I have right here in my own city. Well, I'm going to run up on you one day, honey. We're going to be in the same farmer's market, the same Kroger's, and I'm not going to run from you. And I hope you don't run from me, right? Because you should have sat down with me anyway. I'm right down the street from you, baby. Like, what we doing? So if we're a community, you can go online, you can turn this camera on, you can talk about me, but you can't talk to me. I think we have to figure out what being in community actually means.
Well, the great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said it was chaos or community.
It's chaos.
And I think what we're seeing is chaos right now. You know, one of the things that's been hard for me in wrapping my head around is, or really bothered me, is that society has tried to say that, like, Trump and Trumpism is the racism in America, when the racism is all around us. I'd almost say that that's a scapegoat to put it all on that one side, when now we're watching Democrats online celebrate the Voting Rights Act getting gutted, and asking, hey, I don't know what the Black people are going to do, and how that cannot be racist, but these other things are. And I don't think racism is a bipartisan sport. Like, it is, you know, you got a pitcher and you got a catcher. I mean, like, it's truly bipartisan here. And as a result of that, I think it's been easy for Democrats to tell Black representatives, tell Black elected officials, well, you can only work with us. They want to kill you over there. Don't work with them. We want you to die, but we're going to do it slow. This other group, hey, we want it to happen really, really fast. Now, you stated previously when we've talked that you actually saw Republicans in the state of North Carolina show you a level of respect during negotiations, and that a lot of times the Democrats looked at it as you were in the way, whereas the Republicans looked at it as, all right, let's figure out what we can do to make this happen. What did they do differently?
So and let me say this, I don't see the parties any different, especially when it comes to us. I see them in the same space. I see the racism in the Democrats, and I see the racism with the Caucasians or whites. And so I identify them as the same people. And it took me a little bit to get there, but after watching and observing the behavior, it didn't take long. So it's an interesting thing, because when I went in the legislature, I kept my head down. I worked, I read, I went to all my committees. And then I had the opportunity to get some additional appointments and everything. But that came over time. And I had the opportunity during COVID to build some relationships with the Republicans, because the caucus people were always dividing you. They used, oh, they over there, this and that. They call them the devils. They got names they call them. I said, but probably both of them doing that. Both caucuses doing the same thing. And so I started to see them the same. The behavior is the same. It's just that once you find the moderates in the middle, then they know who you are. As long as I had been there, they know who I am. And some of them started to know that my expertise was in the health field. And so I moved quickly into like vice chair and chair of this and chair of that, even though I'm a Democrat and the majority is in charge. But I think they watched my work ethic. They knew I was serious about what I was doing. And then they started to rely on some of my thought and some of my perceptions about things around issues. And so I had the opportunity to build those relationships. When others are not taking advantage of it, they'll just keep talking to the same people. And if you keep talking to the same people, you're going to get the same results. And so I'm like, no, I'm not going to keep talking to the same people. I done sat in here and heard y'all say no and complaining for 12 years, enough. It's time for me to move outside of that box so I can get to what my goal is and how to be successful no matter what environment you're in. And so that's just me. So I invested that time. I used it wisely. I went to the receptions and all that stuff when I first got there, and then I stopped because I didn't see no benefit in it. I'm very transactional. I ran a small business myself. So I'm transactional, and I looked at what they were doing, just complaining. That wasn't going to change anything, and it definitely wasn't going to change anything for my community. And so I decided it was time for me to shift out of that space because it was so negative and it was draining, mentally draining, and it's already a hard space to work in. So you've got to figure out what's not going to drag you further down if you keep listening to what the people say instead of relying on your own intuition, your own insight, and taking the chance to meet people where they are.
100%. You stated previously, and I took this as a quote, and I thought about it too, and I really liked the quote, and it felt edgy, and I know, and I've gotten to learn you a little bit from being around, and I appreciate the edge and that you have. You said, "I didn't come here to be liked; I came to get things done."
Yep.
Looking back at your time serving the citizens of North Carolina, what are you most proud of accomplishing?
Oh, God. Medicaid expansion. Very proud of Medicaid expansion. Also proud of being able to get the school lunch debt for the children wiped out, and it's in the budget recurrent. I'm proud of the opportunity I had to serve, but also to negotiate and get things done for the HBCUs here. I negotiated sports wage vetting bills so the HBCUs could get some additional funding. Pushing mental health, behavior health, substance use. That's a space that I like. I'm passionate about the mental health and behavior health. Being able to be a part of some historical investments of $835 million in that space. So I have a lot of things, and you really don't know how much you've done. I didn't have a clue of how many things I had done until the campaign came up, and it was like, oh, but you did this. And somebody else had to point it out to you because I had my head down and I was just working, and I never was, looking at what I was getting done. I was always moving to the next thing because I served on over 20 committees. So I'm trying to keep up with all these committees, keep up with constituents, and then figure out how I can help the constituents back home. And I'm pleased with the things that I've gotten done. And maybe it was time for me to go on. And I'm fine with that because the next chapter is about to be written.
Absolutely. And thinking about that next chapter,
Mm.
what would you say as someone who's had the opportunity to serve everything from precinct chair all the way to state representative? I know you have years of working with the Democratic Party. You have years of working with our community institutions, years of working with constituents and voters. Um, if you could give one message to Black voters specifically, especially around power, what would that be?
Um, and I think I said it the other day, and it was that if you at the table, no, it's time to leave the table when you're no longer being served. And I think that's where I'm at, is because I served, but now it's my turn to be served. And so they left the table before they served me. So, we've got to really look at the elected officials and hold them accountable. And if it's not benefiting your community, then you replace them. But make sure you replace them with someone that is really committed to your community. It's fine to replace people, but make sure you get the person that can get the things done that your community need done. And so I really feel like I decided to leave the table, but they had already left the table. And that's where I'm at. And it's time that I go, because I was not being served and my constituents were not being served either. I served them, but the larger party did not serve them. They're serving themselves.
That was a bar. I can't wait to put that in quotes on social media. You hear me? So, what do you say to voters who feel politically homeless right now? Voters who don't fit into the Democrat or don't fit into the Republican, the unaffiliated voters. What do you say to them right now?
I think most of the independents are issue-based voters, and they vote according to what the issues are, but they're not organized like the Republican or the Democratic Party. And they need that organization to make it be more competitive between the two. Because when you get on the ballot here in North Carolina, you have to get 1,200 signatures to get on the ballot for the primary. And so if they would get organized, they could actually pick several, new people coming in, or get behind, people that they think would benefit them, because they are issue-based voters. And I think I'm pretty much an issue-based voter myself. And I think that's a space that we need to look at. It just can't be go along with the party. If your issue is not being addressed, then you need to think about it, do some hard thinking, and see where you need to align yourself at.
Mm. Yvette, for you, as you think of organizing around the state, really around the country, what do you think voters could do to educate themselves or to even assess the power of being unaffiliated, the power of being independent, specifically Black voters?
Well, I think the first thing they have to do is decide what they want, right? So I think the Democrats, unfortunately, in a lot of places, not everywhere, every state party is different, are leaving us with the choice. Do you is peacocking versus power, right? Do you want to get out here and be a mascot for the party and say we stand up for these Negroes or whatever, and you want to yeah, like, do you want to do that, or do you want to actually get resources to your community? Right. Mm-hmm. And so I think when you start looking at, one thing I always tell people to look at your local budgets and look at what was cut from your community in that budget, and look what was added to other communities from what was cut from you. Right. And figure out who did it and where it came from, because that's going to tell you where the power lies, and that's going to tell you where the peacocks lie, because the peacocks are always going to tell you, hey, they're just better than Republicans. You just got to do it. When you look into those numbers they absolutely do not lie. And one of the things that was so interesting in terms of what Rep. Cunningham said today, she talked about how the Democratic Party said, we're not going to do this Medicaid expansion because of the Republican bill. That's the same thing that the National Democratic Party accuses Trump of. They said that, hey, we could have had immigration reform, but Trump told them not to vote for it because it was in a Democratic bill. Like, where is the consistency in that? Either we're going to do what's right for people or we're not. And you cannot brag about it on a national level if you have state parties doing the same thing that you are accusing Trump of doing, and you cannot do that. So I think we have to decide that we're not going to be peacocks anymore. We're going to actually fight for actual power, and power is resources. Power is not always sexy. Power is not always fun. Being a peacock is fun. They're beautiful birds, but like that's not the same thing as exercising power in your community and getting resources. And sometimes you have to cross the aisle and say, hey, let's work together to get these resources into my community. That's not always a betrayal. I think sometimes people see the stuff that's necessary to get resources as a betrayal. Oh my God, you work with Republicans. If it made your life better, what's wrong with that? If this helps you out in your community, what's wrong with that? I'll go work with anybody I have to work with if it helps you. That's my job as a servant leader. Why do you have a problem with my job? Who told you that making your life better if I have to work with Republicans is a bad thing? You need to deal with who told you that, not me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, last question I have for you, Representative Cunningham. I feel you've had a storied career. I'm grateful to have gotten to stand alongside you, gotten to watch you advocate in the community. We got to ride together to go pick up some folks at a retirement community who needed a ride. Okay, we got to move around a little bit. And I know that we need more of you and people like you in elected positions. But everybody has a time. And I'd argue that hearing your ideology right now is still your time. So I want to know what's next for you.
Well, I haven't figured it all out yet. But of course, mental health, behavioral health, and substance use is my passion. That's my space. So I'm looking in that space to see what I can continue to do and bring my expertise to other people in that space. So it's not over. It's not over. I've got other things I want to do and get done. Somebody was telling me the other night, I had a dinner meeting with some people, and they were saying, I said, I'll be ending in December. And they would say, do you think you'll run again? And I said, well, right now I'm not really interested in running again because I've sacrificed that time. I gave all I had, and I'm still there giving now, trying to get some stuff done because I want to get a bill passed for Dominique Moody here in Mecklenburg County, the little girl that died. And I just wrote that out the other day. So I want to walk out with the legacy of that. I did certain things here and move on to the next chapter, being secure and trusting myself to make the right decisions. We have an intuition. Sometimes we question it, but I believe this is the time for me to move on to the next space of where I can bring my expertise and continue to help the community. And they asked me, say, do you want to run again? And they were like, we want you to run again. And I'm like, not right now.
Not right now.
I'm not as young as I used to be. And I've aged since I've been elected. I've aged since being elected. And the stress and, now they say, well, she got all the power. So you can imagine everybody's knocking on my door trying to get in. And I'm like, everybody can't come in because everybody wasn't here. All of a sudden, here you come now, but you wasn't here 2 years ago, 4 years ago, but now here you is, you want something. Well, everybody can't get in now. I'm a who helped me to stay afloat, and that's how it works.
What are you saying? It's transactional, Rep. Cunningham? You trying to say these relationships are transactional? Oh my God.
It's transactional. And I've seen that on the Republican side as well as the Democrat side. Certain people are more transactional than some of the other ones, but I'm very transactional. And so it's like, hey, y'all, I've done enough. I've done enough for my community, and they'll see. They'll see what's next for them.
Well, Yvette, do you have any thoughts in relation to Rep Cunningham before we let her go? I know
You
she's
know,
super busy.
I just appreciate it. I think the people in her district lost like a treasure. And that is unfortunate. And that is one of the things that we try to do, and we're going to continue to try to do in terms of not just the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, but the ADOS Empowerment Project too. You know, you cannot just listen to Democratic ads that come your way. You cannot just listen to the whisper campaigns. And we have all been victims of that too, even in terms of this, like, you know, in terms of what people say about ADOS. So
Yeah.
I think there is a whole education component of this that for you and I will be centered now. And I do believe Rep Cunningham, for now, she can do whatever she wants to do. She's done her part. She's done her work. You can't have the expectation for somebody to keep being abused by y'all. Like, that's
I know that's right.
that
I
came
know
from a
that's right.
personal place. That came from a very personal place for me. But you know, you cannot have that expectation.
Right.
You have to pick up whatever mantle you have and figure out what you did or didn't do. And usually it's what you didn't do to keep this person here. But we have to educate people in terms of how do you figure out whether or not this person was for you, and how you just don't eat propaganda all the time for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It is a problem.
Yeah.
100%. Well, hopefully the next time I see you, Rep Cunningham, we can go fishing.
Yes.
That would just make my day for us to be able to go do some fishing. We appreciate you
Y'all both
joining the crew.
fish?
What was that?
Y'all both fish?
We
Yeah.
both, yeah. Oh,
All right.
You don't fish, Yvette?
Somebody handed me a whole fish, and I love my neighbor. My neighbor said, "You eat bass?" I said, "Yeah, I eat bass." He handed me a whole fish. I almost passed out. Love him to death. Great neighbor. But I was like, Lord have mercy. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this thing. What am I supposed to do with this?
Did you figure it out? Did you figure it out?
I figured I scaled it on the wooden table, and
Okay.
I watched a YouTube video.
Yeah. They'll tell you everything.
Hey, information is all at our fingertips. So,
Yeah.
Rep Cunningham, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for joining the Critical Mass podcast. And even more, thank you for all of your years of service as you've been strong for our community and an example that I think we should all look to follow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yvette. Thank you,
Thank
Simeon.
you. Thank y'all. I appreciate
Thank
you.
you, Rep Cunningham. Yvette, what are your overall just thoughts around power representation and how we should move forward as it pertains to getting the things we need from our community?
I just think right now we're really lost, right? Like, you know, when you don't dictate your own agenda, when you don't think it up yourself, when you don't decide for yourself ahead of time, long before an election, hey, this is what I want, this is what I need. I saw the budget, I know the shortfall, this is what I want. And I'm willing to have anybody in power who's willing to help me get that. You end up losing good people. So what happens is if you don't do that for yourself and decide, hey, this is what Representative Cunningham or whoever has done for me, and this is why I support them. Somebody can send you a message and say, hey, this person wore a MAGA hat. And it's not, Cunningham didn't even wear, Representative Cunningham didn't even have a MAGA hat, right? Like they put that hat on her. Or like with me, it's like that was a prop. And you can say, oh no, they're MAGA. Like, we have a problem with education. We have a problem with people who say, no, I'm not going to believe what you said about her. I'm going to research her, or I'm going to also have my own agenda ahead of time. And I'm going to know before you come to me what this person did for me. So our problem, really and truthfully, there's a little bit of laziness in here too. Like, you should already know what Representative Cunningham do. You shouldn't be talking about, oh no, she's in favor of ICE. You should know what resources she brought to your community before you go vote. If you just tell me something about ICE, then that means that you are letting the Democratic Party educate you about what you need and what you should be doing. And that's a problem, because I got news for everybody. The Republicans are not on our side. Like you said, slow death. They want quick death, and Democrats want slow death. Listen, nobody's on our side. We have to figure out what our side is and what we stand for and who we stand with. And we do that independently of a party. We don't allow a party to dictate to us what our priorities should be. That's a problem.
100%. Yvette, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for all that you continue to do for the community. Those who want to know more about the ADOS Advocacy Foundation can go to adosfoundation.org. ADOS.org and get all the information you need. If you want to vet, where can people find you on social media?
Oh, you can find me at Breaking Brown on Twitter. You can find me at Y Carnell. I'm on Threads now. You can find me Yvette Carnell on Facebook, and of course Yvette Carnell on YouTube. Just look it up. I'm always out there.
Go get your political education. The ADOS Advocacy Foundation has chapters around the country. See how you can get involved at joinados.com. Yvette, thank you so much for joining and looking forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Samir.
Thank you.